how to create more. Hey, this is Tom from Wage Freedom, and we've got something a little different for you today. We've got a mix of tips and mindset shifts to help you increase your own creativity. This is part two to a video we did earlier, and I'll link to it below. The first one was about reasons why it's so important to create more and why we might not be creating as much as we'd like. But before I get started, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Meg Ahern, Dr. Meg Ahern. Why don't you maybe jump in and introduce yourself, Meg?
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I work in a variety of fields, primarily international development, where I work on gender equality, but I've got a bunch of passion projects as well, mostly having to do with kind of self-development stuff. And I started talking with Tom about this because I'm so passionate about these projects, yet the volume of time that I really put into them and the progress that I make is way below what I wish it could be or what I feel like it should be, given how much I care about these things. And so our conversations about, well, but wait, why exactly is this? And what can we do about it? It was really helpful to me. And so we were hoping it would be helpful to some other folks as well.
Yeah, we thought it might have some general applicability, and I was
Mm.
surprised myself that we came up with about 12 actual little methods that we've used ourselves. And to give context and just to underscore this, we're living in a time where there's so much media out there, and it's so easy for an individual to either grab a camera or just a laptop, and whether your thing is video or writing, just you can so easily share and just distribute your thoughts, whether it's social media, your own website, whatever. There's a bit of a dichotomy that's developed in the mind of some people where we're all, to one extent or another, consumers of information content nowadays. But the question is, how much are you also creating? My opinion is that if you're just focused on consuming other people's content, and creating very little of your own beyond maybe, I don't know, a photo of your dinner or something, and not that there's anything at all wrong with that, but sharing thoughts that you have about maybe I hate to say deeper thoughts, but life issues that you might have, or serious interests that you might have in your life. Whatever you might actually create content around. There's a lot to be said, in my opinion, for balancing out all this consumption, this fire hose we're all confronted with our own sort of, hopefully, content that's hopefully as high quality as we could make it. So I think there's almost a universal relevance, and it might even be increasing as we go forward, and more people maybe do take up the challenge of creating more content for the world. I think most of us have things to share, and whether it's a hobby, or whether it's thoughts on how to stay motivated or positive, or stop an addiction or something we'd like to change in our lives. Things going on in our lives. I think we both agree that it's there's a lot to be said for maybe be a little more proactive in creation. So that's what we hope that you get out of, I think, our little tips here. Anything you'd like to add to that, May?
I guess I would just say, as we talked about in our previous discussion, that there's really, there's so many reasons. I mean, we really get in, that's the video where we get into all of the reasons to create, but one of them that I think is worth mentioning is that kind of owe it to yourself, because you're going to get to know yourself and your own thoughts and your own heart and mind in a way that you probably won't be able to without going through this creative process and everything that reveals itself through that process. And so just the way that you can deepen your relationship with yourself through creativity is a great reason to try to give yourself a little more time and space to spend time with it.
Yeah, I agree. Creativity general, I would say it ticks a few different boxes, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Meeting people we might never meet from across the world, might never meet otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of fleshing out, inner issues that we ourselves might have, and sort of uh, it can be a catalyst for drawing them out of us, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
So point one, and just like
Mm.
maybe an overriding assumption that and this is my opinion, and this is reflects my own experience with creating for wage freedom. I've been I think I registered the domain in 2008, and I don't have a lot of content on the site, but I have been writing for a while, and
Mm.
feel fortunate. I've gotten a lot of feedback on the YouTube channel as well. Something I've learned over time, and it took me a little while to really internalize this, but an overriding assumption for me anyway, there's always going to be people with whom your content doesn't connect.
Mm-hmm.
Even things that you create that you might feel, are quite worthy. It doesn't even seem to matter. There's always going to be someone who will shoot it down for whatever reason.
Sure.
And sometimes they actually don't really get what you're saying. Sometimes they do, and they still try to, and they still have something to say against it, and that's just the way that it goes. And, the converse I found also to be true. Things that I had in my drafts folder in my WordPress for wage freedom for sometimes literally for years, that I wasn't even going to publish, didn't think much of them, do publish finally, and get feedback like, wow, this was really great. So I think what I've done is I've sort of stepped back from trying to assess too much the quality of my actual production, and just I do the best that I can all the time. I know that. I just have a policy of hitting publish, putting it out there, and just realize. I think if you really internalize that, in all cases somebody's going to hate it, and probably somebody's going to love it too. Probably. If you realize that, you might think less of how it'll be received, and simply focus on make something worthy, which really should be the focus anyway, right? But I confess for myself, it certainly was a difficult hurdle. If you make something and you think it's good, and it reflects something deep inside of you, and somebody disparages it, that can really hurt, and I get it. I really do. But I think over time, and YouTube helped me with this as well. For some reason, the YouTube comments are really cutting. I mean, and not necessarily, at all constructive or anything. I've just said, I'm just doing it. And I really don't care anymore, just using myself as an example. I found it actually got easier over time to just say, I just know that, if I mention the word, the virus that the world is currently, laboring under, that there's going to be, 20 people who come back with crazy comments. I'm just going to do it. I'm doing it anyway. So anyway, and just a really quick aside, part of this I know was because I kept over the years seeing interviews with people, artists I respected, musicians often are asked by an interviewer who's taken a real analytical approach to their catalog, their music, and asking, well, were you thinking this, or what did you think? How did you think it'd be received, or where were your heads at when you made this album, or whatever the song? And so often the response is simply, we're just making music that we ourselves like, doing the best job that we can on it, and then we release it and hope people like it. But we don't control that. We just, we can't control it. And these are folks that often, they've been around for decades and maybe they're quite successful, but even they are sort of in the same headspace as I think new creators starting out should be at. Just realize once you launch it, once it's out in the world, I don't know how much control you have over its the way it's received, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we as creators, all of us, can live with that. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. I think what of course the word resonance comes up with this idea of how you find the people that the people with whom your work resonates. And my partner, as you know, Tom, is a broadcast engineer, and sometimes he talks to me about literal resonance. Sometimes we'll hear it in our car when we're driving around, and we're like, it's just resonance, because the metal is or whatever material is, its physical properties are such that it's going to vibrate with a certain frequency, and so in a way, it kind of makes sense that you can see this in a room of instruments. If you play a certain note, that you can find a bit of resonance in all the instruments in that room with that note. In a way, I guess you could extend the metaphor, if you were looking to extend a metaphor, and say, if you create something, if you create something that resonates really with your own metal, with what it is that you're made of, and it's really true to you, then that is not only going to resonate with other people who are sort of made of a similar metal, but also it means the fact that it's true to you means that the people that your work resonates with, they're going to probably continue to vibe with you, to resonate with you. They'll feel like they found the right creator, I guess.
Pretty soon there's an orchestra of resonance.
Yeah.
But that's true. The added, and it's a great metaphor, and it fits. There's an additive effect going on here. The folks that don't care for what you're doing, well, I guess they'll go away. Hopefully, I guess. But the folks who do, they maybe they'll remain, or you'll remain in some way connected, right? So you look back after years, and you've got a whole army of folks who stuck around, maybe, and you for them as well, of course, I guess. Right.
So this kind of leads us to a second method for kind of getting past that stuckness. Sometimes when I get kind of stuck in my own work, I'll be thinking like, oh, I'm just here alone in this room. I don't know if anyone's ever going to read this or see this, and is it going to really have an impact? Is it worth investing in? And so, so another method that can help is to think about who this work could help. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe it's just sort of someone that you imagine who could be in a position to benefit from your work, whether that's because it'll help them find their way through something, it'll inspire them, it'll just create more beauty. So trying to imagine in sort of specific terms, who could this help? And then imagine, writing it to them or creating it for them as a way to connect to your desire to help during the creation process.
I think it's an excellent method, and I know I've used this myself. Focusing on just this, because then it becomes sort of a conversation, even if it's a monologue. But it's easier to address one person and their. I'm with you. I love that one, and that's an icebreaker. It really is. There, I like it. Another method of sort of helping your creativity along is, mentorship, coaching, communities nowadays. So easy, it was Facebook groups, and now it's Discord servers, and 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 all of the above, right? There's so
Mhm.
many ways, and you don't need to spend any money or anything. It's folks who have maybe similar interests, who are a little further down the path, and they're happy to help so often, and then you become a person who's also a helper of folks who are just getting started. So a wonderful free dynamic that is never really existed anything like this before, maybe 20 years ago, right? It's a real evolution from, remember, internet forums in the old days. It's much more yeah, I don't know, sticky, or it's
Mm.
just, it flows a lot easier.
Mm.
So and by the way, even something like therapy, I think it would be could be a real help, something like this.
Sure.
Speaking just for myself, I know my little story is that one time I actually I actually invested in some coaching that
Mm.
was really probably more expensive, frankly, than I should have done, maybe, or
Huh.
I thought beforehand that this might be crazy what I'm doing,
Mm.
and so did my wife. But looking back, the fact of the matter is, it was one of the very best investments I ever made,
Mm. Mm.
and to this day helps me. It was more, frankly, in the internet marketing, arena, which is what
Mm.
I do.
Mm.
Profound mindset shifts, in addition to the sort of actual thing I signed up for, which was sort of technical methods and the rest of it. But the mindset shifts were at every bit as valuable. So just throwing that out there, you
Mm.
absolutely don't need to spend any money to immerse yourself in other folks who are capable of helping.
Mm.
But it can be, it can be sort of that's an open door as well, in my opinion. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Um, then I would like to just throw out, I'm active on Twitter at Wage Freedom is my handle, and there's the Twitter is such a minefield. It's so easy to waste time with it, but I have to say, in my opinion, it's really enriched my life as well. Some people far more than others, and when I look at people who don't even know I exist, but who, number one, inspire me to be more creative,
Mm.
as a just by the volume of their quality production, but also, yeah, I mean, it's I am inspired by people who talk productivity and creation, but also often produce several
Yeah.
times a week, right? So,
Right.
there's David Perel, there's Jack Butcher, Thomas Bevan, Dickie Bush, just people, completely different areas of, let's say, expertise and interest, but through example, as much as anything else, inspire me to, at least write something every day, at this stage, whether or not I do actually publish. So,
Yeah.
be sensitive, was what I would say to folks out there who can, even simply by example, uh, encourage you, in effect. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, Kathy Heller does that with her podcast, which is specifically about creativity and encouraging people along those lines, and also the examples of prolific creators like Morgan Harper Nichols, Adrienne Marie Brown, who model such inspiring different ways of creating and of engaging with community.
Yeah. It can be almost like an informal mentorship, even if they aren't aware of you, just because their examples can be so strong, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. And I found it really helpful to read wagefreedom.com and to think about
Thanks.
this point that you had made about how you had made this point when we were talking earlier about how the idea of just think about someone who inspires you a great deal. And then what if this person had never created? I think we talked about that in our last video. And to picture the author whose book saved my life, what if she had never become a writer and she was just filing papers in some sort of clerical job? That you use the word profane for that, which really feels like the right term. Just and then you can use that by extension to imagine how maybe you also have a kind of an obligation to the people you could help to go ahead and try to share some things with the world.
Yeah. Inside those people, there was a future self that no one, maybe probably on the planet, would have ever imagined was there, and maybe least of all these people as well. They may have had some dreams and stuff, but there was not certainly any proof or anything like that. But aren't you glad that Bob Dylan actually did push through whatever early difficulties he might have had writing music, or pick whoever's inspired you. And it's there isn't any reason, no matter where we're all going, there's no reason to not hold yourself as someone who, if you don't sell 1 million copies, you still have things inside of you that I think are worthy of expression. I don't know if everybody does. I don't really care. I know enough people do.
Yeah.
That that far more people, the world would be a better place, in my opinion, if far more people were being a little more I don't know, I hate to say trying a little harder. It's not for me to judge, but people, think of conversations you've had with strangers or something, and they give you some little kernel that they thought was obvious, maybe, and it could change everything for you potentially. And I think so many people have that in them.
Yeah.
That all that's lacking is the sort of outreach. And
And it feels like, I mean, at least to me, it feels like what I'm lacking is courage, because to create and to put something out there feels audacious and scary. But as you point out, it's really an act of generosity.
Yeah. You could say, it's helpful to, and it's accurate. And I think it's helpful to view it like that, because that takes it all. It's not just about you sort of, I don't know, showing off or here's what I've got, or here's my great idea. It's, daring to communicate, you really, and the possibility that you might help. And by the way, it could be some maybe, I don't know, maybe more abstract thing that, to help somebody change an aspect of their life. It could also be how to crochet better. And I say that not in the slightest minimizing crocheting. You see, I mean, there, what if there was some method that about knitting or fixing cars or something, that somebody could get something. Either way, it's just value, we can say, and that's that there's that you can. It's worthy of moving forward on that, and not just to actualize yourself, but to help others. It's true. Yeah. I guess I'd add as well onto the next point. It used to be before, I don't know, probably before YouTube made it really inexpensive, basically free, to get a lot of distribution. Writing was probably the main medium that was realistic for most people. And also, we didn't have our little devices with good cameras in those days. So to be a creator, it was usually going to veer you off into writing, I assume. Well, that's still a wide open, obviously completely valid channel. But it's almost like a platitude. It's got to be very clear nowadays that video you want to make 20-second videos for TikTok, or do you want to make, an hour-long video for YouTube, or everything in between? It's all valid. Pick a medium that suits you. If it's not writing, it's okay. And if it's not video, it's okay also, by the way. And podcasting, we know all the media. I would like to emphasize that, for a lot of folks, they just focus on one channel. Joe Rogan, I mean, it's okay to completely to learn how to do really well on one medium. It's okay to only be a writer and not use any of these other channels, right? So, and I say this because it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Otherwise, you could say, my God, this or that person, they do have a presence on YouTube, on Twitter, they've got a podcast, they've got all this. I don't have time for that. So this is just not for me. And the thing is, there isn't any reason to just assume that you must dominate any number of channels whatsoever. It's all up to you. Some people are great at talking and really shy on camera, and go down the podcast route. It's all wonderful, right? So, some writers are not good at long form, and I am swimming on Twitter in savants who are so good at 280 characters or less. I am absolutely blown away sometimes. And these folks don't have blogs. They have no other outlet whatsoever that I know of often, right? So I'm just throwing it out there. Any length, any medium, it's a wonderful thing, right? I mean, whoever you are, whatever you're comfortable, however you're comfortable sharing it. That's all.
Actually, Glennon Doyle has a funny story. I don't know if her podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. I love it, but it's new. She's new. She's an established author, but she's new to podcasting. And she said that she got the idea out of jealousy, out of envy, because she felt like she was struggling to write all by herself, just her and the computer, feeling very lonely. And then she felt like all these dudes were just chatting with their friends, having the time of their lives on podcasts. And she was like, I want that. That sounds so fun. And she stayed in a place of kind of envy and resentment for a while before she realized, wait a minute, we could do that. Like, let's do that. And then I love it. Her podcast has become, I think it was one of the top Apple podcasts for 2021, which is the year that it launched. So just whatever looks like the most fun to you. Maybe you should give yourself permission to go do that.
Totally right. And look how fast it can take off, right? And even if it's that there's a little bit of almost like a sort of a I mean, is it negative to say, either I could do, that's like, it's like a boys club over there, or I could do just as well, whatever it takes, whatever means is necessary if it prods you. I would say it has a functional utility, and that's a good thing, right? Whatever makes you turn the microphone on or start tapping that keyboard, right? So I love that story. I really do, because what are we talking about? We're talking about a path that folks who otherwise might be completely sort of disenfranchised. They're not, maybe they're not a white male, right? I mean, we know those guys and they're all right, but
they can't help it.
They can't. Whatever. I still pity them. Anyway, no, but they're so many folks are up. Hey, look, so many folks are underrepresented, and because the gatekeepers since forever have been, for whatever reason, there's we don't have to make this political, but I think that there is an underrepresentation of a lot of folks who all of a sudden in the last 20 years for sure suddenly have the means to production available to them media wise, and that is profound. You
Yeah.
know, the microphone is a great equalizer, and it's all, you know, to some degree a meritocracy. And you know, you can there's a lot of folks you'll find who feel equal, just as disenfranchised, probably, if you will dare to start talking or writing. And you may find yourself banding together with a lot of sort of, you know, people who also have felt on the margins unfairly since forever, right?
Mhm.
um yeah, it's that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That there are barriers and gatekeepers who have fallen by the wayside. That it may still exist to an extent, but they no longer need to dictate
Right.
whether or not you have a voice or not. And
That's
yeah, I don't want to get political, but you know, that to the extent that is a reality for so many people, and I know it is, even as a white guy, I know that it is. It's just a huge, wonderful step in the right direction potentially. But you're the
Mhm.
person who's got to, not you, but you're the
Yeah.
person who's got to take the step.
Right,
Right?
right, right.
You got to dare
Yeah.
to. And yeah,
Right. Yeah. No, the change can be profound for all of us. Because we get to hear so many more voices. But like you say, that depends on that. It's only going to be the richer the more voices join in.
I agree. And I think it's probably the variety of voices is maybe hopefully increasing over time. Sort
Yeah.
of feels that way. It's not
Good.
hard for me to think of folks who I definitely never would have gotten that publishing deal or whatever, and yet they've got, you know, a channel or two with quite a large you know,
Mm.
audience, whatever we're
Yeah.
calling it. So well, anyway, so it's all good, and you can't know that won't be you until you really give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
So
True.
so you know, I just wanted to say, you know, and this has been
Mm.
something I still have to remind myself. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. This it's about habit creation to
Yeah.
some degree, as opposed to only relying on inspiration. You know, there was a time where I felt completely okay about walking away from the keyboard if I wasn't feeling it today.
For
and
sure.
and 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 you know, and I think I still do that. I do that, but
Me
I feel
too.
less justified in doing that nowadays, because I understand through partially through, you know, some of the mentors I mentioned earlier, that
Mm.
even when you're not feeling it, you know, you've got to you know, you should be you should be, this is for me, creating a habit, a daily habit for me,
Mm.
not necessarily for anybody else,
Mm.
of at least giving it at least 20 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, a path forward, even if you're not feeling the inspiration. For me, functionally, just parenthetically, what that means is sometimes when I am feeling the inspiration, I will make little voice notes, usually for me, that I can refer back to later, for exactly for those times when the inspiration is not coming. You know, it's just not coming.
Mm.
That works pretty well, at least for me, because if I've got you know, something to work from, I can usually let it go. And then what happens when you do that, when you do push through, a lot of times, even on that day, you
Mm.
can sort of begin to it'll begin to flow again, which is encouraging. Yeah. So yeah, habit creation as opposed to only relying on inspiration, understanding that both have a role in where you're going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and even for me, I've kind of a rebellious personality when it comes to productivity. So, when I was working on my PhD and all the other grad students were having sort of writing accountability groups, to help them make progress on their dissertations, I had to like specifically not do that because once anyone else told me they expected to do X, I no longer wanted to do
Yeah,
X.
right.
My partner and I, like, the way I've asked him to support me in my fitness goals is by I tell him the goal and then he tells me that he doesn't think I can do it because I'm not a man. And that's exactly what I need to hear.
That's funny.
Just to be clear, those are the lines I fed him. But that's anyway. So personalities like mine, have trouble with this. But one trick that I've heard from one of my favorite people, Martha Beck, is something that kind of helps me get around this, which is she calls it turtle steps. And the idea is to take the smallest unit of action that you think would be reasonable to do today, and then cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And now this quarter step is your turtle step. And I find that, at least for me, like, I will feel like, oh, I really need to feel it. And until I'm fully in the zone, I really probably shouldn't even attempt this, is how I usually feel, to be honest. But sometimes if I do think about, well, but what about this turtle step, this little quarter step? It's almost insultingly small. It's almost preposterous to imagine not doing that little thing. So it kind of draws out the part of me that's like, oh, but I can do that.
Right.
Obviously I can do that. And then it kind of, whatever, it's really about whatever gets you unstuck, right? Whatever gets you to take the first step.
That's right.
Seems like the most important thing.
That's right. And if you have to play little games with yourself or just little mental frameworks like that, and and that's the purpose of these points we're going over, and you can obviously pick and choose. Some maybe work for you on some days and other ones, not at all, whatever it takes. Right. These are all simply means to a valid end, a vital, important end. Right. So, no, I like that. I do like that. Just briefly, and it's just another little game I played with myself. Having an idea, it's not fleshed out. I have no idea if I would ever want to really share this at all. So it's sort of, there's a drag on me sort of addressing it at all. Well, what I say is, look, at least write it. Get it out. A draft. If you don't want to finish it, and even if you do finish it, if you don't want to publish it, you don't have to publish it. But at least get it out, because I don't know about anybody else, but a lot of times where I think something's going when I have an idea, it's not really where it ends up going. And so there's such a value in at least going ahead and talking it out, fleshing it out, and then. And again, if nothing at all is forcing you to actually put it out there in the world, but don't let the thought that it may not be for public consumption keep you from creating it in the first place. That would just be a shame. Right. That's all I would say. And I have definitely played that game with myself. Another little overarching sort of maybe mindset thing is this idea of a polished piece of something, well-edited book, or well-edited video. These are important. They have their place. Obviously, goes without saying. But don't let the fear of what you're doing or going to make, maybe not being as well polished as you'd like, prevent you from moving forward. I realized that this is my own opinion. Spontaneity is just another form of presentation, an unpolished form of presentation, and I think it's more acceptable than ever. This idea that authenticity in a time when a lot of folks are trying to make polished things, to just sort of, do the live stream, just do just throw it out there. You almost gain some points in some ways, depending on the topic, maybe, I don't know, or the audience, or you. Some people come across really well, or just the best way that they can come across is by being utterly authentic. And I would say spontaneous, so just spontaneity as just another valid form of presentation, to me has been helpful to view it that way, because again, that another thing that get me off the couch. Just do it. If you want to polish later, you go ahead. But sometimes you don't really need to. And that is, the whole thing really, isn't it? Trusting yourself to be able to articulate your topics, your thoughts on any topic, well enough to be helpful to others. That's the measure of value or lack thereof. So, and a lot of times that specifically doesn't require polishing and spontaneity can be the best way to convey some thoughts, some topics, right? That, in my opinion. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely. And I would say my last tip would be that, like, if you're having trouble and you're coming up against some kind of hurdle and you're trying to create something, consider maybe making the first thing you create something that has to do with that hurdle itself. So it's kind of what we're doing right here. And then for me, I recently made my first Skillshare course and I was terrified because I'd never recorded video of myself before. I'd never put my full name and my face on the internet before. I mean, it was just all kinds of terrifying to me. And so my first Skillshare course ended up being how to deal with the fear of making something and putting it out there. Because that's what I needed. I don't think I could have made anything if it had not been about exactly what I was afraid of. And I got to shoot scenes in which I was voicing the fears that I actually had, so it wasn't acting. Anyway, so that technique, going right after what it is that's in your way, can be a good way to help yourself. And then you're going to be in a really authentic place when you make it, so you're more likely to help others as well, I think.
Exactly. And it's a great course, by the way. I watched it, and it helpful for me and worked, I thought, as an affirmation, something you could look at more than once, because it was about things that we can sometimes fall back into old bad habits if we're not careful, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was wonderful, and the authenticity did come through, and it was perfect, because to take somebody on your own journey, essentially you're right where they are, really, even though you're actually the person, I suppose you are leading them, but there's just so much to be said for, a lot of times real experts are not the folks who might best teach beginners or folks who are, way further, not at all, aren't very far down the path, quote unquote. I hate to use metaphors like this in a way, but the person maybe who's just a few steps ahead of you can teach you better than that 7-degree black belt in karate, right? Or whatever. That was a unbelievably good example of that point, and I think is part of the reason why the little course itself was so worked so well. Yeah, because there you were, and you could feel it. It's great. Yeah. Link in the description. Look for it, folks. So the last one I haven't to wrap it up, and this is a bit of a carrot, I guess, that I'll wave around, and it's and I mean this. I haven't had huge success online, but I've had enough. I mean, my audience is on several channels are in the 4 figures. It's not a hell of a lot, but it's something. And all I can tell you, even with my smallish, I hate to say audience in a way, it sounds stilted, or I feel like everybody's on the level. You know what I mean? But be prepared to be surprised with how much traction you get. Okay. Especially if your immediate goal is not to make money from folks. Now, there's anything wrong with that, but that's not really what this here is about. There's a lot of folks out there, and there's a lot of folks who are there's a lot more people that are going to resonate or be able to get something from whatever in the world you're producing than you realize. That's if take away nothing else from what I've said here, take that away, that you'll be favorably surprised by the amount of folks who will write to you or get back to you and say, hey, that helped me, maybe just a little, maybe a lot. And that is something you cannot know until you take the first steps, to being more of a creator yourself. Be encouraged by, even before it happens, if you can, by that dynamic stepping in as you create. If it's from the heart, if it is helpful, and you mean it as such, you will connect with people, and sometimes on quite a substantial level, in ways that might really even help them and help you too. By the way, if you need an external reason to get going, that's a real good one. Okay, this is a long, content creation, being creative nowadays, and daring to put it out there. It's different than it used to be. There aren't just writers who need publishing deals and everybody else is sort of going to work every day. The line between creators and non-creators is extremely blurry. We're all becoming content creators to one degree or another. The only question is how overtly will you choose to actually build a sort of in a way, an audience for yourself, surround, that is reflective of what your interests and what you're willing to share and even help people with. Okay, that is up to you. And this game is not going to stop. This is a rest of your life game. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you should be, it only applies to 20 or 30-year-olds. Even older people, that you can change honestly everything, just by getting yourself out there, because the distribution is there, it is free, and it is probably way more powerful than you think. Okay, so yeah, I'm biased. I suppose maybe Meg is as well. We think creation has good, benefits for us inside of ourselves, but also as a way of putting, in a way, the best about you, whatever you think that is, out into the world, and changing your life.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I agree all the way. So thanks a lot for listening. We really appreciate. I hope you got something from this. If you did, we would very much appreciate. Here's my little speech. If you would like this video, that would be wonderful for us. Tell the algo that somebody out there is appreciating it. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be wonderful. And hit the little bell next to the subscription button. You'll be notified when I or we make new videos in the future. And thank you sincerely for that. So Meg, where can people find you online?
Hopefully we can link my YouTube channel, and then you can find the links to the other stuff that I do from there, including the Skillshare class, and you can put that too. And we'd love to know also in the comments sort of what your experience has been of breaking through, what's been helpful to you. Have you tried any of these tips, and how have they gone? If you have anything else to add, we'd love to hear.
Absolutely. I whatever things that are working, not working, whatever. I love hearing that, we'd love to have any comments that you have, comments, questions. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Meg, for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
And it was great. It was great. So thanks a lot, and thanks folks for watching, and look for more soon.
Great.
Thanks.